Welcome to Crow Jam. This is the podcast where two sisters and an occasional guest have 1 hour to develop and pitch a board game concept. I'm here this week with my sister Georgia. She's getting back on the horse, back on the wall, is ready to return to the climbing center after climbing update. Georgia had quite a nasty climbing incident.
Yeah, just straight off the bat, like 2 episodes ago, we're getting into climbing, and then I really did hurt myself quite bad. But next week I'm hoping to get back into business.
Also joining us is Leo, our lovely friend.
Hello.
Friend of the show, friend of the company, former Big Crow playtester.
Yes. Credited on one of my favorite funny little RPGs I wrote for giving it the best possible name.
Is Leo the origin of We Are Not Approaching Swindon?
Yes.
My God, Is there anything he can't do?
Truly, no.
I mean, I did not arrive at Swindon, so.
Leo, would you like to tell our listener a little bit about yourself and perhaps your gaming likes and habits?
Yeah. So in terms of my gaming likes, so I play both board games and video games. More video games lately, just because I'm quite antisocial. But in terms of board games, I fortunately like almost all board games, from the really intense strategy games, like Twilight Imperium, or Scythe, that kind of thing. To I enjoyed the more little fun games. I've been playing Unstable Unicorns with my parents lately.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've played a game or two of Unstable Unicorns with Leo.
Yeah.
Well, you will have to, when you visit us, play Here to Slay, which Abby bought on the strength of its similarly cute, quirky artwork, but I have to say is not the most strategic or interesting game.
I feel like Here to Slay gets slammed so much, both on and off the podcast.
Oh, have you seen it being slammed elsewhere?
No, just by you, but you just seem to love to slam it.
To be fair, this could be completely unwarranted. I've played 2 games of it. I'm just not very convinced.
Well, a game's got to be convincing.
I mean, I like a game that's got a lot of random stuff in, because I tend to try really hard when I'm playing games, and it can make it a lot less fun if I'm playing with someone who doesn't.
Yes, this is a big agree from me, especially if you're more of a gaming type person who plays with less gaming type persons. It's actually good to have a game where they can fluke into a win.
Mm-hmm.
Or where, you're trying really hard doesn't necessarily advantage you unfairly.
Yeah.
All right.
I enjoy that as somebody coming from the opposite end. Now, I'm not really into trying hard, but I still quite like winning.
I mean, I like to win, but I don't like it when a win feels kind of unjustified, where the other person is sort of inexperienced or hasn't hasn't quite got the trick of the game or something. You want to go into battle with a worthy opponent. Anyway, we always invite our guests to bring a prompt word for the podcast for us to sort of bounce around. And this time you've given me a long thing to write on the screen, because our prompt word is emphasis. This is not that long a word, but it's got a PH in it. Makes it feel longer than it is.
2/3 of the way to a PhD.
So did you have anything in particular in mind when you suggested emphasis as our prompt word?
I'll be honest. So I came up with it. I was watching a video about like maths theory. And I ended up watching like a Vsauce video about like the axiom of choice and infinities. And I noticed he was emphasizing words really weirdly in a way that, like, you know, if I were to do it like in conversation, it would be deeply annoying because he'd be like, and this is why it works in that way. It's just doesn't really it's just annoying if you're talking to, but like it's fine in a YouTube video, obviously. That was what I thought of it. But I also I don't know, the other thing that I like is there's like emphasis like inside words. And if you say it, like, for example, emphasis.
Yes, this was
Still
something
the same word.
This was something that came to mind, but I can't think where it's from. But someone said that someone puts the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yeah, that's a Folding Ideas video about Suicide Squad.
Okay.
This is a very specific thing that's happened to me recently, but basically in my D&D game, each of us had the ability to like make a little like NPC adventuring party that would be sort of like proteges of our adventuring party, and we got to name them. And I made a little sort of like very bard heavy, like rock heavy little group, which I gave a silly name named after Queens of the Stone Age. And a couple of weeks ago, my DM messaged the group being like, I just found out that there's a band called this, like, nice one, Violet, which is what I go by in my D&D group. Like, I always assume that you've done a clever thing, but I just didn't know about this one.
Sorry, your DM found out about the existence of Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah, look, I know a lot of nerds. He would probably know loads more.
Yeah, lots of
classical composers than you.
Almost certainly. It's just always funny to me.
But this was crazy to me because I felt like the entire time this has been going on, he's been saying the name of that group with the like emphasis in the way that you would only ever say it if you were saying Queens of the Stone Age. So this whole time I've been like, oh, David's so on to me with that stupid name I gave them.
Okay, interesting. So like I've put something about like rhythm or patterns, and what this is making me think about is, I mean, we do a lot of these on Crowjam, but this could potentially be a communication game.
We do love those.
We like to communicate here.
I thought this was an interesting prompt, not one that I like that like instantly spat out a lot of ideas for me. I've written down 4 things.
Okay.
Number 1, I was thinking about the emphasis on cis because we are a sisters podcast.
I also thought about this.
Number 2, there's one game in which the word emphasis occurs, and it's Canvas that I've played a little bit recently. It has like a rule about emphasis, and in like one of the like goal objectives that you can get is called emphasis, and it's about like having exactly one of a certain symbol in your painting.
Right.
And so I was thinking about like that kind of emphasis, like maybe where you are trying to have something, but it has to be like in a certain quantity or position or something, or there's one thing that's always valued and like across the game, you're just kind of always trying to get that thing, which also made me think about when some games have a golden rule, like, you know, there's a rule and that rule always applies. So if there's ever any question, apply X rule.
Okay. Can you think of an example?
I can't, but I know that there are ones and I use them like in my job.
Yeah.
This isn't an example I use, but for example, like the golden rule in Patchwork, it's always the turn of the person who's behind on the time tracker, right?
Yes, okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
quite like that. So there's like a rule that sort of overrides everything. So to try and summarize what you've said, I've noted down emphasis as in the focus. So this was something I had on my notes, like the emphasis, like when you emphasize something, that might be sort of what you pull out as most important, you underscore it. I've actually just in this little mind map like done a little bit of underlining and things to emphasize certain syllables and certain ideas. So that was something I was thinking about. And then the other thing that I was thinking about is that in speech and to some extent in music and also in figures of speech, we might also call the emphasis the stress.
Okay.
I also thought of this, and I did not want to submit stress as like a prompt word. Because...
Yes, I totally get that. But I did sort of think that was interesting. Like on a couple of occasions, we've set out to really try and make games that are not stressful. And I can't think of anything we've come up with that has a particularly stressful component to it.
Wacky feet.
Wacky feet. But it might be an interesting challenge to sort of try and introduce some element of stress. But I'm definitely not pushing hard for it.
Yeah, you're not stressing it.
I'm not stressing it. So we've got some like interesting ideas floating around. Is anything here sort of suggesting a starting point for anyone?
Um, I guess if I was combining some or any of these elements, it might be kind of fun. I don't know that this would work, but it might be kind of fun to imagine a communication game where it's all about putting crazy emphasis on words, but I just don't know how that would do anything. Like,
yeah, this was kind of what I was thinking about as well. It's like putting like some kind of speaking game where the emphasis you put on things might do something, but I didn't quite have anything yet. I was thinking a little bit about emphasis as in, underlining or highlighting something. So whether there was something we could do with that, like sort of starting, let's say, with some kind of board or playing field where everything is equally valuable, and then using some kind of highlighting mechanic to, so for example, like imagining it's a word game. Like in Scrabble, you start with a blank field and you fill it up with letters. This would be a bit more like a word search, I guess, but maybe you get like highlighter tiles, like maybe your words don't have to be continuous or something.
So perhaps this is a weird one, but like kind of a battleship situation where like you have a word that you're either trying to protect or trying to get somebody else to recognize, and they have to make guesses. When me and Abby like were like long distance for a little while, I invented a stupid little game that was like battleships with words, and I called it bottle ships, like messages in a bottle. It was weird.
I actually think it's really interesting that you've brought up like word games specifically, because like emphasis is one of like the big ways that like you can communicate what's going on without any words at all, you know.
So kind of like you can almost communicate the rhythm of a word like with tapping, like and you can show where the emphasis is without actually making a word sound kind of thing.
Yeah, or if you put the focus on a certain word, you can be like, this thing is important, like if I was like, you schnoodled with the, if I was like, you schnoodled with the schnipp, like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
clear, like, that schnoodling's the big deal here. Like,
Yeah.
the schnipp is who cares?
Or you can use a sentence like, he never took my bike, and put emphasis on every word to give the sentence a completely different meaning.
Yeah.
So like, he never took my bike, or he never took my bike. Yeah, it's true. I also love that you chose schnoodled as your example word. I'm noting it down.
I'm just all about the extremely unhelpful like tangents today, but a sort of emphasis thing I was thinking about today is the song Iron Man, where they came up with kind of a cool sounding guitar riff, and then they decided that was going to be the whole melody of the song, and it sounds really bad.
Oh, poor Ozzy. He was on a lot of drugs.
You want another probably not that useful tangent? It's to do with the way, like, because rhymes, I believe
R.I.P.
like words rhyme if they sound the same after like whichever like sound in the word is stressed. So so that's why like I can't think of any long examples of rhyming words because I'm bad at words, but like it's a lot harder to find a rhyme for like personification because the stress is quite early on and there's a lot of syllables. But if it's like bat, that's
So yeah, so like, yeah, okay, resounding and surrounding. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we've got like some of the stuff that's coming through is almost a little bit like poetic, like rhyme, rhythm, syllables. I've got a note here, words, and then also not words. So could this, we've actually made a poetry game before, but it's been a while. Could this game have something to do with poetry?
You know what is sort of going on, what's happening in my brain is this is like primary school English literature, but the Jabberwocky, where it's like full of nonsense words, but your brain kind of like decides what the meanings are. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. It's like I feel like I developed a mental image connected to that verse the first time I heard it.
I mean, just looking at the words not words thing in particular, what I think would be like maybe kind of cool is if you have like one person, like they write something down and they want to like communicate to someone else, like, some idea, like, I don't know, you schnoodled the some, you did something. And then like someone else has to read that out and they have an entirely different like set of things that they want like the person to remember or like to learn. Or just like, something like that.
Okay. This is sort of making me think about like, this is absolutely just the tangent episode, so I'm not sure what's gonna come of this, but it's now a little bit making me think about the way Smurfs talk.
Yes.
Like
how does Smurfs talk?
Well, they just have this one all-purpose word. They speak English, but they just use Smurf and Smurfy a lot. Like it's interchangeable with most vowels, not most vowels, most verbs, most adjectives. Like, so like Smurf kind of has no meaning, so it sort of just contains every possible meaning.
A bit like Hoob language as well, but like the Hoobs like to help you out by suffixing with the thing they're actually talking about.
So
I find it very funny that like you say that, because the word that I immediately think of as like versatile, they're just like swear words, right?
Yeah.
Like most swear words, put them in the right context, they can mean whatever. Yeah. Really.
It's true. They are maybe the most versatile words.
So
in
maybe the Smurfs just
they're
swear
swearing
a lot.
all the time.
Yeah.
Well, it's a sign of being highly educated. So
It's swearing a lot. What?
yeah. I'm not sure exactly what it means, like what the origin of the correlation is, but generally, the more highly educated you are, the more likely you are to use expletive words. Yeah, like
Okay.
in normal speech. But then I do, as I say it out loud, I wonder if there's kind of like I wonder how the study was conducted. Like, was it just that highly educated people were more comfortable swearing around a scientist because they knew other
Fair,
scientists?
yes. Leo could probably tell you something about that.
You sworn around a lot of scientists, Leo?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, you're a scientist, you do research and it goes badly because that's how all research goes.
You don't have to tell me that. Although not as a scientist. Okay. I will say that I feel like we've got lots and lots of like nice ideas. I think this might be the nicest like spider diagram I've ever drawn on an episode of Crow Jam.
It's looking good.
If you only listen to the audio episode, you are missing out on a truly choice spider diagram on this occasion, and you should head on over to the YouTube so you can see it. But I still don't feel like I have a good handle on what we want to play. Like what's the game? We haven't even started the timer.
If we leaned into the sisters, the Emphasisters angle, would this be something to do with kind of like communication, like secret twin language?
I was thinking about secret twin language.
Where you need to try and use like I'm sort of imagining like a game that plays out almost like a role play scenario at the dinner table where you've got mum and dad and you've got like the twin sisters, and there would be like, I guess, sort of like multiple strands or layers of communication that were trying to happen among the table. Could almost be
like a team game.
Yeah, not quite a hidden role game, but like a hidden
message game.
Yeah.
But no, something that sparked something for me. I don't have it exactly, but it would be something like it would be played in teams of two, and it would be a kind of like round the dinner table scenario. And or maybe I'm not sure exactly if it's in teams of two or if it's you don't know who your communication partner is. So each of you has one half of a set of codes that's like secret words, but you only have like a very small amount of overlap with other people who are communicating, and you're trying to find out who your partner is by like trying to drop in words from your list of code words that would be like made up words like schnoodle, but trying to not overemphasize them so that other people picked up on them. Is that anything? So you're trying to like determine who you think your counterpart is, the person who's got the same language as you. Maybe everyone has like a couple of words, like there's some really similar sounding words, but they have different meanings for different teams.
It could even not necessarily be like a team game, but like you could be given like a thing, like each person playing the game could be given like a dynamic or something with each other person. That they then have to like figure out, and like, depending on what it is, only like you speak a certain way, or that kind of thing.
Okay, so maybe you're dealt like...
I'm going to start the timer. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's some kind of communication game, and we think it involves... What it sounds like to me is that it involves like quirks, basically. Like there's different... You might have like multiple speaking quirks, and you've got like relationships with other players. and we also think like secret or nonsense words might be part of it.
This is making me think. I just listened to the Friends at the Table episode where they did Inhuman Conditions, the one about like
Oh, I've seen that reviewed.
Yeah, so the game is like it's a two-player game and there's like an interrogator, unlike the person being interrogated. And the person being interrogated is secretly like a robot, a human, or like a murder robot. And there's just like, if you're like a murder robot, you have to like do these things in the conversation, like like compliment the the interrogator, or like change your story or whatever. And if you do that enough, then you murder them. And I don't know, that seems it reminds me of that.
I think that's a really strong reference. So that game in itself is inspired by Blade Runner, and the Voight-Kampff test. So yeah, I think that's something to like hold in our mind, both as something that could be like really useful inspiration and also something to not replicate. If you'll pardon the pun, Blade Runner fans. But yeah, that I've never played it, but I've seen it played and I think it looks genius. So yeah, what came to mind when you started talking about the kind of the ways that you might relate to other people around the table was that, yeah, you would have some kind of, so it could be like hidden role. So it could be like a dinner table conversation where like, I don't know, this is very, very stereotypical and maybe like a little too normative, but it would be like, mum, dad, sister, whatever, aunt, uncle. Or you could make it like a little bit more, it could be a bit more broadly defined. So you could just sort of see like parent, child, family, friend, keep it a bit more neutral. So your job is to sort of try and uncover allies and not allies by using some kind of like semi-shared language while also disguising your role. And I think maybe also you get like a randomly generated speaking quirk that you have to adhere to kind of.
Yeah. I'm sort of trying to, as we're talking, I'm kind of trying to like hook onto in my mind like what we could do that could make a game like this that isn't like other games like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like, definitely.
An idea that I find really, really fun would be like is like having very like game token things. And I think it would be really fun if you had like, if there was just like a pile of game tokens and like you could take them in like a really obvious way, but like some of them you could just take whenever. And some of them, like, if you were like trying to collect as many of them as possible, it could be like, there's like this token which you don't care about, and then there's this one that you do care about. And you could just like take them as like fun little. I
like that, because what I'm imagining is this like, I basically a few minutes ago, Miriam said something about like sisters at the dinner table, which obviously like resonates for me. I have a sister, etc. But like, I also don't want to make something that's kind of like, I don't know, that's got any kind of, I don't really want to make something that has a strong relationship with the nuclear family, I guess. Like, I don't think that's particularly inclusive. I think it's, something where its representation isn't neutral at all. So what I was imagining was like a really surreal family dinner. And so the idea of there being like bowls of game tokens where there would usually be like a bowl of peas is actually kind of...
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing, like that if we had these game tokens, they could sort of abstractly represent food just in the kind of like, like sort of like mental landscape of the game. And taking them could mean something
I was also thinking that they could play a part in the sort of communication part, which would be to do with asking someone to pass you something or serve you something could be like a mechanic, right? So like if you've got this communication objective, but then your actual objective is to like have a particular plate of tokens.
Oh.
But maybe you can only serve yourself certain things, and you can only other people can only serve you some things, but you're not allowed to use like maybe the tokens don't have an official name, only like a pictogram, and then you learn what word describes that for you.
Okay. Gosh, there's
Something
a lot of
like that.
ideas.
I think
Like,
I'm very much a fan of like giving other people tokens.
Yeah.
Just because like, it's just very fun, if you just like do this, like, because it feels really like a game action, doesn't it? Like giving someone a token. And if someone's like, here, have a token, and they're like, why? And you're like, don't worry about it. It's a token. In fact,
yeah.
here, take another.
See, I feel like there's definitely like I think that the things we could do with these tokens are varied, and we probably couldn't include all of them in a game. But there's definitely like I like the idea that there could be like sort of within whatever we're doing, maybe there's some tokens that like you may take one of these when somebody else like uses X kind of word, or when somebody else, or like when there's such and such a seating arrangement, or like anything like that. And there's
I love that. There's something happening there is really ticking a box for me.
Trying to like deduce what the reasons that people are doing things, but then mixed in there could be plenty of stuff that's like like next to meaningless, or you could just be doing things to kind of fuck with people, like Leo said, just like, here, have a token.
So what I think I like about this is that it's got an element of communication and deduction, and it's a hidden role game of sorts, I think. But the goal, it's not a hidden role game where the goal is to like find and expose an imposter. Like in a way, I think all of you would have secret quirks that would make it harder for you to communicate with everyone else. So there's no imposter to find. You're all like, you're like aliens meeting at the cantina or something, and none of you speak the same language. But your goal is actually to just get like the plate of food that you want to have. But everyone's got their own little rules, not just for how they speak and how they interact, but also for like what things they can touch, whether they can serve themselves or others, what they get to do when someone else does something. Does that all make sense?
Like that all tracks for me, but then I think I want to know what's the conversation about, because if we remove all sort of conversational context, then it becomes a game where you're trying to do those things and you're largely talking about those things. I feel like it's nicer if there's kind of a fictional surface layer.
Okay, well,
yeah. I think that, because I mean, what you could do is like, have it so that like participating in the conversation in a certain way is, what rewards you the thing, like you could have like, like you could have your stereotypical person who always wants to talk about aliens, which you've just written there. And like, every single time they mention aliens, without someone being like, what's going on there?
Okay, so
like they get the benefits.
Yeah, okay. So you could have a rule where it's like anytime you mention unusual topic, you get to swap something on your plate with something on your neighbor's plate. So like that's a fairly conspicuous action and a fairly conspicuous topic, so maybe you have to kind of like hide it behind something else that's happening.
And maybe other people are incentivized to keep the conversation topics sort of like small talky and banal, or like there's kind of a norm of conversation.
I guess the other thing that like stands out to me is because with this like relationship thing, right? Like usually when there's like conversation happening, there's something that I want to say to someone, and like if we're doing this kind of like surreal like dinner table thing, right? Like, no, everyone's gonna go in there and they're gonna have like, this thing where they're like, oh man, did you, like maybe I talked to like, maybe my friends there, and like we really want to talk about like this game we've been playing. And so you could have it so that like you want to talk about a thing to a person.
But then you would have to find out who that person was somehow. Like, so that adds a bit more deduction. No, I was saying that because I like that. Like, there
unless
could be
people is just determined by like seating or like, yeah. I suppose, yeah. I
think...
mean, are there actually any hidden roles in this? Like that nothing that we've said so far makes it hidden role. There's hidden quirk and there's hidden objective, but there's no hidden role. So we could have name labels.
Yeah, it could be like open roles. So it could be like your species card is kind of front facing and it has one thing that is like one rule that everyone knows applies to you.
Yeah. If this wasn't aliens, it sort of feels oddly like Mad Hatter's Tea Party esque. Like everyone there's kind of different and is sort of talking on their own that on their own agenda and in their own way. No one's necessarily a good listener or making cohesive conversation.
It could also be like dinner with the surrealists, I guess.
There is already a game called Surrealist Tea Party or something. I feel fairly sure.
Let me just cross that out. It does ring a bell now you've said it.
This is... I think it's a book. There's a book where they like try to have a conversation with someone, but like for some reason, like they're like in the bath, like just forever. I think. Well, unlike, I think I might actually be thinking of there's the Discworld book with like the monks of time.
Oh,
and
yes.
Like the abbot's very old, but he reincarnates. So he's having like this, conversation about the fate of the world, and then he just injects like one bicket.
Yeah, he's a baby.
Yeah, because he's a baby.
So yeah, I mean, it could just be. So Miriam, do you have like it's totally fine if you do. Do you just think that doing like an alien thing is just super played out?
Oh, I don't know that I'd say it's played out. I guess. I mean, if anything's played out, it's Alice in Wonderland, right? So, like, if there are accusations of played outness going around, I deserve the top prize. But there is something about it, that setting, that feels a bit more, I guess, a bit more flavorful to me. But I don't really know why, and I'm totally cool with it being aliens.
I mean, I feel it's easy to go like it needs to be weird, so it's aliens. But I'm very open to it just being something that's much more like just weird. Just like, there's a talking teapot and there's, an octopus wearing roller skates. These are such lame examples of weird things. I'm sorry, I'm quite tired. I could come up with something way weirder if I'd just woken up.
I do like the idea of like the idea of like weird in the way that like dreams are weird, where it's like kind of normal, but it's also like like, but also nothing really makes any sense if you the moment you start looking away, everything's gone.
Yeah,
and it's just like
we both love to try and make games about the dream space. Also, just on this particular day, internet love of mine, Brian David Gilbert, just released a video about a dream.
I watched that video. Yeah, I was going to reference that.
Yeah, it's the closest I have ever seen, with the exception of like maybe towards the end, but the middle part of it is the closest I've ever seen anyone get to actually capturing what a dream is like.
Yeah.
In a piece of filmed media. He's a complete genius. But it's very, very well done.
That is like the song, spoiler alert, by They Might Be Giants. That is probably the best song for doing that thing. But I will need to check out this video. As we were saying this made me think about possibly an unworkable, possibly a slightly cruel thing that this game could do, but it could have a role in which, if you were playing with all people who'd played the game before except one person, you could give that one person a role and then fake teach the game, and the person just has to sit there while you have this like completely like detached from reality conversation and try and figure out what's going on.
That feels like a house rule, like like we create the game and then people start to do things like that. I mean, I do kind of like, I mean, I think that general weirdness and the idea of being dreamlike are potentially quite compatible, in that like the way that dreams are weird isn't like the way that people try and imagine are weird. Like, but there's some overlap.
I also think it works quite well with like the way we've been talking about the game, because like you dream about like sitting around at the table with like people and like eating. And like you'll see like, I don't know, a thing of Yorkshire puddings, and you'll be like, yes, I want tons of those. But like you take one and then suddenly they're all gone or something.
I also like, because part of the thing we've been thinking about is sort of to do with how you relate to other players around the table. And one of the most interesting things that happens to your brain in dreams is when it knows that a person or a thing is something, but when you actually sort of look at it, it's obviously not that thing. So someone's front-facing role could be quite different from sort of their actual behavior, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we think this is kind of like, it's like dinner in dreams. Like you're sitting around the table with a bunch of figures who commonly appear in dreams. So it would be like your primary school teacher, your driving instructor.
And also somebody from your primary school who you haven't thought about in 24 years. And you wake up and you're like, Sam Golding?
James Blandford? Yeah, or is that not too specific, but like maybe those things aren't as universal as I think.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I like that. And I feel like the card that you would have in front of you, like, or perhaps it could even be like a collection of cards, but it would say things like, like when a person you're sat next to like gives a token, take, and then there would be a pictogram representing the thing you can take. And then there would be like give any token anytime someone uses a verb, so you basically have like free reign on giving people tokens. And then there would be a third thing that would be like yeah, it would be sort of quite loose.
Yes, so I think this sounds really good, and I like all the rules, and I especially like that the cards never like name the tokens, they just pictogram the tokens. And I feel like to like bring our nonsense words back into the mix, maybe everyone gets dealt some, I think it would have to be done with a combination of cards, so it was different every time, but everyone knows the name of one type of token. And like maybe there's a mechanic by which you can guess what a token is called that you don't know, and if you're right, then that becomes part of the shared vocabulary.
But what would encourage anybody to use that word?
Yeah, it's true, and without it just being like, here, have some Groboks.
I do love the idea of someone being sat there being like, these Groboks are fantastic, Margaret.
I like the idea of like what's the word? Like you were saying with like the kind of sister language where like over a long time, you just kind of like figure out like these ways of communicating without anyone else understanding. And I think it would be cool if there were like secret words, and like you could like maybe like you could like guess someone else's like secret word and like what it meant, and then if you did that, you were like a team from that point on, or something like that.
Yeah, I do see. This was something that I was sort of in my very early thought about this would be the idea of secret teams where you didn't you didn't know going in who your teammate was, kind of thing. So whether that was something that was predetermined or you could like organically create it through figuring something out.
Well, I also like how like I think it works quite well for the dream if like if it is a team game but the teams are determined like in the middle of the game, because that does just feel like the dream thing
for how that could work, and I don't know if it would be like too. You might have to place restrictions on how it could happen, but it would be something like anytime somebody gives you a token which is the token that matches that the like secret nonsense name of, then they are on your team. So like giving tokens then would have to be a bit more restricted, I guess. But like anytime, like even if they don't know they're doing it, if somebody gives you a token and you're the one who knows that token is like Largbag, we've
got to be careful in case we speak Swedish.
You perceive that they're on your team.
But then what does that mean for like these are I'm really interested in a lot of the ideas that we're throwing around here. Really interested. But I still don't. I feel like.
How do you win?
Yeah, well, so I feel like my thinking is that how you win is that in front of you, you each have a plate, and you're trying to get some fairly complex arrangement of tokens. So I'm imagining there's lots and lots of different token types, like minimum 5, probably more. And you're trying to get some arrangement of those that's maybe like totals 10, and it needs to be exact. And the first person to do that can flip over their sort of meal card, their like order card, and be like, I win.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like part of it is that I want you to be able to ask for things, but you can't point or anything. You have to ask for them by name, but you have to uncover what they're called by paying attention to what other people say.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, what I was imagining was that you would end up with like a plate with a load of like differently shaped tokens on it. Maybe like a few of them match and a few of them don't. But that's like your target is a meal.
I think. Sorry, Leo, you go.
Yeah. So the other way I can think of this like the token thing working is instead of it being like get these tokens to win, is have it be a bit like Settlers of Catan, where like you get the tokens and you can use them to do things that like they don't they lead to you winning, but it's not like do this and then you just win, right?
So shamefully I've never played Catan. So I don't know what the different tokens do for you. I know that in Catan you can do like trading, so maybe it's like
I mean, so
I just
the main thing.
Yeah, sorry. We all talked at once there. Get in there, Leo.
Sorry. So to just explain what I mean by Catan, like the way that you win Settlers of Catan is you get 10 points, right? And you can get those, like you get points for like having big cities, and having lots of cities and a few other things. But like, so the main way like you just have like, if you just have the resources to build a lot of cities, then you can just build a lot of them and you'll win the game. And so I like, because I think that well, for example, if you have like a specific thing that you're trying to get, then I think that like I just really like the idea that there's a token that doesn't matter at all, and that like you don't know until the end of it. Like you don't know while it's happening, that it doesn't matter. And so, I think that's where I'm coming from with that. Anyway.
I think that in a lot of these scenarios, when it comes to like, if there's anything to do with needing to have certain tokens, whether or not they like have like functions or whether they just are like on your meal goal card, if the way that we're handling them is that they have secret names and that different people know the secret names of different things, it does mean that we need to introduce like slightly more defined rules about conversation. Like, for example, a way it could work is you could ask for a trade where you ask somebody like, oh, so-and-so, could you pass me one of your Zumbles? And if they pass you the right thing, X happens. If they pass you the wrong thing, Y happens. Or it could be like, I can't remember what my other example was, but there would be more, you wouldn't be able to just have free form kind of conversation and people doing things. It would need to be a bit more defined, or there would need to be a turn structure or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like a turn structure could help with this. Something I was thinking was, what if you have the glossary visible to everyone? So like a list of words that is equal to the number of types of token, but everyone only knows the identity of one type of token, and also there's probably more types of token than players. So you're not allowed to reveal your what you know directly, but you could do it indirectly. So on your turn, you would say, Miriam, can you pass Leo some scrumbles? And if you know what scrumbles are, you could act on that. And if Leo knows what scrumbles are and you pass him the wrong thing, he could do something on that. But we get like a bit closer to some information. I don't know.
Yeah,
Again, it just doesn't really feel like fun. I keep getting stuck on what makes this game fun.
It's gone away from the fun thing, which was kind of more of an abstract, more of a loose sort of surreal conversation, I think.
Yeah, that's okay. So maybe like the tokens are cool, but maybe we kind of like pull back from that and think about what else.
Well, I think that the tokens don't need to go away, but the names might.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I don't like the hidden information because it's just like, because it's not interesting as well, because it's just like the thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can't, because also like you can't do that without like just like name dropping it. Really. Okay. I think.
So it's about like conversational rules where sometimes if a certain like word is said or if someone else does a certain action, you get to take an action as well. So you might have a rule that says anytime Miriam takes X number of this token, you take Y number of this token. Or if this happens, then pass this token to the person on your left. And so then coming back to
some of it would be related to what people are saying, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. I think it should be conversational.
So it's not about what other people are doing, or it's usually not about what other people are doing with tokens. It's usually about what other people are saying or what you're saying.
Yes, but then I'm back to sort of like what motivates you to say things.
I think that I think that in order to do anything, you would have to say something, right?
Okay.
Like, like if I wanted to like, I don't know, if I want to like get some tokens, or if I wanted to, get this token, it would be like I'd have to like jump in and go like, oh yeah, my dog's just like that, just
You can
like
only touch tokens while you're talking. Maybe that would be too chaotic, but like, yeah, I think it would be like a rule which says that you can take something whenever you do a certain conversational thing. That one's like cut and dried.
Yes.
Because you have to be doing that thing in order to take anything, and you need things. And then there's another one that says you can take something when somebody else does something, and hopefully in the course of trying to do their thing, they'll allow you to do. And then there's probably a give rule as well, where you can get rid of tokens. Yeah?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so in that case, I feel like it is back to trying to come up with, like, trying to complete a particular set. Like, I like that. I like everything you've just said, Miriam. And I feel like if there's like a take rule, a swap rule, a giveaway rule, all of that is for me to do with like refining to try and achieve a set. Does that make sense? How do we feel about that?
I agree.
The other thing you could do is, have either of you played A War of Whispers?
No.
Sorry, what?
A War of Whispers.
No.
Okay, so the way that game works is like there's like a map with like 4 nations on, but you don't play any of the nations. And instead you get like you have like a thing which like represents like how allied you are to each one. And that's all hidden information. And so it's more like, you have some general rules about like the state of the entire board rather than the state of like just your own thing. And like, maybe you could have it so it's like double on your own plate or something. But I like the idea that like someone might like care what's on your plate because, to take it back to like the family, right? You might want like your children to like make sure they eat like, enough vegetables.
Yeah.
And if you're the children, then you might be concerned that your sister has more meringue than you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, so one way in which you could do something about that would be to have a token type that is rare. And that everyone has rules to do with being able to move it around.
Okay.
So like your rule set would include, so I'm imagining, for whatever reason, I'm imagining a piece that's like a big tomato wedge. It's like a big red half circle. And there's like, for a 5-player game, there would be 3, but all 5 players would have some kind of rule that would allow them to move it. And all of them would have it as part of, it would be like a common victory piece. So if you thought that someone seemed too concerned with getting it, you could concern yourself with moving it off their plate, even if it's not something you needed on your plate.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That definitely makes sense to me. Yeah. I think this is one of those things where like the specific rules are things that would probably have to be like balanced and
lots of play testing.
But I definitely like how that all sounds. And I think that your idea, Georgia, of the plate where you need 10 things and there's quite a mixture, like it kind of, even if like your sort of rules and stuff are more randomized, it might give you a bit of advantage. Like say your plate needs 4 gurgles and you're like, you can take a gurgle when you do X rule, means it, means that you can get those 4 gurgles pretty easily, but then you thereafter you've still got to do everything else.
Yeah, you've got other things to do. So can I take a moment to quickly describe what I think we have, and then I'm going to sense check it with you guys So if there's anything you think I've missed or anything that I've included that we've since eliminated. So what I think a setup table looks like is that there's like a bunch of dishes in the middle with different numbers of very distinct tokens.
Yeah.
Then in front of each player, there is a front-facing card that tells you something about them. It's like their dream characteristic or something. It's a known fact about them. It's a rule they have to follow. Then also in front of every player is 2 or 3 randomly generated rules that other people don't know. And then finally, everyone has a secret target plate that they're trying to do. The types of rules that they have might be whenever someone talks about themselves, take a yellow token. When someone uses someone else's name, move a token from one plate to another plate. Things like that. So you're listening out for things, you're acting when you hear conversational things, and you are trying to curate your own plate. You're trying to block other people if you see them taking particular actions. And you have actions that are prompted by you doing things and actions that are prompted by other people doing and saying things. So doing and saying for both things. And then is play just kind of like constant and simultaneous? So you're not taking turns. Everyone is just talking, acting, and it's just all the way. It's like a very busy dinner, or is there some kind of structure?
I like in my heart, I like that format better, where it's just loose and like unstructured. But I definitely feel like there could be players who are disadvantaged by that.
Yeah, I think that I like the idea of, because, well, I mean, this goes with like my other note. I like the idea that your turn is you saying something, you know.
Okay, so it's just like saying a sentence that gives everyone the chance to hear what's said.
Yeah. Maybe your turn is saying something and there's kind of a grace period where people can respond conversationally, but then it moves on to the next person's turn to say something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, either that or like the turn moves to like to whoever you're talking to, and you have like a weird turn structure, but like obviously some sort of mechanism that stops it from being like
a back and forth.
Yeah, just a back and forth.
So it could be, I mean, you could have like a talking stick, and you would just have to have the rule that like you couldn't
play keep away.
Yeah, you couldn't play keep away. So how I think this might work is that, let's imagine a 5-player game. For whatever reason, the component that I'm imagining is like a little standee, so like a little cardboard stand-up figure that's in front of everyone, and it's standing up. And then when you say your sentence, take your action, anyone else takes an action that they can, then you chuck a beanbag to the next person, and because you've spoken, you flip down your standee. And you can only ever chuck a beanbag to someone whose standee is up. I guess it'd be a little bit more like a Guess Who kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a thing that flips down and up easily. That shows whether you have been or not. Or, you could just flip a card over to say like, yeah, I've been this round. And you can only...
I like the idea of like, the rounds where like, you can only talk like, I mean, maybe not once, maybe like if you did it like twice or 3 times.
Okay, so you could have 3 little like Guess Who's things in front of you and flip them down.
Yeah. And then you couldn't like finish the round until everybody had their dudes down.
So how that could look, if you imagine that everyone already has like a little like card holder in front of them that shows their identity and some kind of rule, is it could just have like 3 little like clip-on clips on the top that you just like take off as you get to speak, so that you can just see how open someone is. And then if 2 people do want to play keep away, that's fine, but then they will end up like being kind of ruled out.
It means that you can kind of have that flowing conversational like structure to an extent, but everybody still gets the same opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also like this because if you haven't been talking for a while, then it simulates that thing of like you haven't been talking for a while and you just start rambling.
Yeah.
Because you haven't talked 3 times.
Much familiar to me.
Yeah, okay, I think that's pretty good. So I feel like we are actually getting quite close to it, but I sort of want to revisit this like dream theme.
We're at 20 minutes, just as check-in.
Left.
20 minutes?
Yes, 20 minutes left.
I was going to say, if we're only 20 minutes in. So, yeah, do we sort of want to like, I think it would be good to jam on, I guess we can kind of do like the theming and the branding a little bit together. But like, I want to know like who is at this dream dinner party, haha.
Yes. Is that like, are we talking about sort of character archetypes that we feel are common in dreams, or are we talking about sort of like slightly more goofy, abstract, like I don't know, talking oven glove?
Yeah,
Definitely not sat in my kitchen recording this.
So I feel like characters might be better than archetypes. So like just having maybe like a really good library of character cards that people can randomize every time. I think that might be more fun. I'd be interested to know, Leo, if you sort of had a thought about like what the characters were like.
I've been wondering that. One thing I've been wondering is like with the roles, like so like what I thought would be you could maybe do with the roles is like in your character thing could be like it could be like your aunt, but they're like everyone at the table's aunt, and like and no, that doesn't really work because like if you had like your aunt and then someone was your uncle, you'd have like an aunt who thought their uncle was their aunt or something. No, like you'd be like, I'm the child in this. You could have a where they're both like, I'm the child in this relationship, which might be a bit weird.
I don't think weird is necessarily a thing we're trying to avoid in this game.
Yeah, but I mean, it might be like, because if you're like, I'm the, like someone might be like, it means that if you're the aunt, you're really like, I guess you're maybe not like, yeah, if you're forced to act in a certain way.
Could we, I mean, we could sort of split the difference in like some of that stuff could be happening in the private, what I've been thinking of as the quirks. In terms of like the front facing, like, but you could also have a talking oven glove who acts as if they're everybody's aunt. Like that could be.
Yeah, I feel like it would be nice if the art was kind of like not necessarily reflective of the character. Like if those were separate things, they wouldn't need to be separate things. But I quite like that idea. Like, yeah.
What would be cool, I think. Let me know if I'm just like throwing random stuff in that doesn't need to go there. But like if you have like if the quirks each have like a characteristic, and like as you like progress through the rounds, like you finish round 1 and then you like reveal another characteristic. So like the first one might be the aunt, and then you reveal like I'm also a talking oven glove.
Okay.
But like I'm still your aunt, and then like
yeah, I think I do like that. So it could be that like your private cards, your quirks, say it's like a 3-round game. Like you have 3 private quirks and only one of them is still secret at the end. So 3 are secret the first time, then you reveal one, then you reveal another one and another one. I don't know if that like, yeah, I mean it's good in that like the rules of the conversation become more convoluted as everyone knows them. I mean I like that because I like the element of like randomizing what the characters are like a lot more. So they're made up of a set of like disconnected ideas that are stuck together by randomization.
One is sort of a character archetype, and one is like a picture of a little guy, and one is like I guess like an interest or a
like
speech.
like a personality thing, right?
Yeah. And then you've still got your rules, which are like start out private.
Yeah, when it comes to rules, your description that you did, Georgia, the actual conversation, do we actually have rules about how somebody can talk, or are the rules only to do with when token things happen?
So what I had in mind was that the rules are about when token things happen, but then I feel like we have lost part of our original mission. So maybe there should be rules about the way you talk.
Well, I think that what you could just do is have it so that, like, you were saying that you can have like game actions happen when someone says like a certain thing. You could just have like a very simple like game action that's like you get like my dad always does this. You just get like a very simple like point whenever you like say a brand wrong.
Okay.
Or like with a weird intonation. He always says like Netflix. Like it's
well, that brings us back to emphasis, which I was worried we were losing a little bit.
Okay, so that works, because it could be like a secondary victory thing. You know, some games have that where your like primary victory goal is getting your meal goal, but if you win 10 points by doing your thing 10 times and nobody notices, that's also a victory. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I don't want to with only probably like 17 minutes or so to go now.
12
I feel
minutes.
We've got the rules, I think, as reasonably close to pinned down, and I'd like to think a little bit about. So I'm starting to get a sense of what it looks like. I think it's like quite visually busy. I really like the idea of all the tokens representing food, but none of them being food shaped at all. So it'd be like, could I have some purple cubes? Could I have a marble?
You know what I think would be really cool? Did you have when you were kids like those pieces of paper where like they were different images based on the angle?
Oh yeah, lenticular.
Yeah, them. If most of the game pieces were like that, all the
oh my god, yes.
Expensive,
this is what's been missing.
Yes.
Luckily, we don't have to make it. the oven gloves going lenticular.
And no, not because just never mind. I was going to do a lentils
you got
joke,
lentils
but
on it. Yeah, don't worry. I was working on it as well, but I didn't have it. Okay, so the box, you better believe it's lenticular. Yeah. The little pieces, like the cubes and spheres and stuff, I think they should be like all different textures, like some wooden ones, some clear plastic, shiny metal.
Yeah.
Like
you can get quite nice sort of like gummy seeming pieces. A game called Honey Buzz has very like pleasing gummy pieces.
Like there's bits of sea glass. It's the most expensive to produce game we've come up with in weeks. Then like everyone's cards have like lenticular shifting art. Okay, like I feel like it's got a visual now. It feels very 90s to me. There's something extremely, I mean, I guess stuff being lenticular, also like holographic foil on stuff.
Yeah.
It's like 90s kind of like hypercolor, like mega graphics.
Yeah, and there's one card which is like see-through.
You don't know what a wasp nest you've just stepped into. Transparent cards is a Big Crow staple in that I pitch them for nearly every game and I very rarely get them. It's the closest we've got to a podcast meme. All right. And finally, we just need a name.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Dream Dinner Party isn't terrible, but it doesn't tell you anything about the game.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having like a name that's just like seems a bit nonsense. Like there's a game that I haven't played because it doesn't sound very good, but it's called Shower with Your Dad Simulator. And it just sounds like what is going on there?
Okay.
So it would be like
Yeah, it's not a useful suggestion, but
Okay. I'm going to just write down some of our like key words and ideas. So dream, dinner, nonsense, secrets, food, weird.
you could call it something like,
surreal.
like eat your purples or something.
I don't hate that.
Like a standard like dinner table thing, but like, wrong.
Yeah, or like pass the globnax.
Oh, yeah.
Eat your purples and pass your globnax are my two favorite options right now.
Or like at my school, in primary school, the dinner ladies always used to say less talking, more eating. You could have less eating, more talking.
That feels like a tagline to me.
Yeah, maybe.
Eat your purples, etc. just makes me think of the YouTube series that's called Just Puddings. It's a pun on just desserts.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, Miriam, given the choice between those two, do you have
they're both kind of corny in different ways.
Okay.
No, I mean,
I've heard you make a suggestion.
No, I mean, I like, but that's good. But I'm just trying to figure out which corniness is the one that we are.
That's more what we're trying to do.
Yeah. No, honestly, I guess they're kind of the same. Pass the Groboks.
All right. The game is called Pass the Groboks. Okay, so we have probably like a very small number of minutes left. So, Miriam, do you want to do like a quick recap?
Yes. So, Pass the Groboks is a conversational intrigue game where you are trying to collect your ideal meal of abstract tokens which don't have names. Those tokens are in different quantities in the middle of the table, and you have a character, you have a set of rules that determine when you can do things with tokens, and they always relate to whether you're saying or doing something or somebody else is saying or doing something. A lot of these rules just to do with like the kinds of things you're talking about, the kinds of words you're using. The game takes place in turns, but turns kind of bounce around the table in a conversational style until within a round, each person has spoken 3 times. Whenever somebody speaks, anybody else has the chance to like interact or do any token actions in response to that. Every person also has a private rule where they can score a victory point each time they do a particular conversational thing. And if you reach 10 points before anybody else has completed their meal goal, that's another way to win. Man, I went a whole roundabout way describing this game. Is that most of it?
I think that's most of it. This was a very interesting one. I feel like because we started with such an interesting prompt, like it took a long time to get started, but then once we got rolling, I felt like we almost had too many ideas. Like,
yeah, I think the introduction of the tokens made it very interesting from the get-go to me. It was the piece I was looking for to like help me understand what was going to separate this from other, I guess, like conversation and intrigue games that I know of.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
nice
that was
one, Leo.
Yeah, big
Thank
ups
you.
to Leo. And thank you very much for bringing such an interesting topic as well. So I think all that's left is for us to say thank you to our listener, our loyal listener who tunes in as far as we know. And so thank you, Miriam, for hosting. Thank you, Leo, for being an excellent guest.
Thank you, Georgia, for all the art and annotation.
And to our listener, we'll see you again in a week or two for more Crow Jam. Cut call.